Tanse, I'm Chisasibi. Welcome to APTN National News. Thank you for joining us on this Wednesday. The Meadow Lake Tribal Council in Saskatchewan says they are dealing with an ongoing public safety crisis in a number of Indigenous communities in northern Saskatchewan. They are now calling on the RCMP, the province of Saskatchewan, and the federal government for immediate action to address what they call critical gaps in policing services and resources and ongoing systemic failures. In a statement from MLTC, they say the public safety crisis includes a total of 9 northern Indigenous communities seen here. And the current partnerships between the RCMP and the province of Saskatchewan and the federal government have failed to deliver essential police services. The MLTC says critical issues have also emerged, like the ongoing mental health crisis, increasing addiction rates, crime, and gang activity. And they allege police resources have been diverted to neighboring municipal communities that is leaving First Nations underserved and vulnerable. In a statement, MLTC Tribal Chief Jeremy Norman said, "The lack of police presence in our communities is creating a dangerous situation that cannot continue. Our communities deserve the same level of public safety and protection as any other community in this province." The MLTC says now is the time to implement a comprehensive tribal policing services, noting the successful establishment of the Ganawage Mohawk Peacekeepers that was established in 1979 and the File Hills First Nations Police Service that was established in 2002. A press conference on this announcement from the MLTC was scheduled for Thursday in Saskatoon. However, it has now been rescheduled to a later date. The 4 people from St. Teresa Point who died in a recent plane crash in northern Manitoba last weekend have been identified. The community is mourning the loss of 2 couples. They include Rena and Bradley Monias and Ella and Nestor Monias. Both couples leave behind numerous family members and loved ones, including their children. Previously, RCMP said all 4 passengers died at the scene. They did not release their names, but did say the victims included a 49-year-old man, a 53-year-old man, and 2 50-year-old women. According to St. Teresa Point Chief Raymond Flett, the 2 couples were going to their traditional hunting grounds located south of St. Teresa Point in the area of Makepeace Lake when the float plane they were traveling in suddenly crashed 40 kilometers after takeoff. The plane belonged to Alair Air Taxi Service in St. Teresa Point, and the 20-year-old pilot was seriously injured. On Tuesday, St. Teresa Point organized this event for Bradley Monias, who worked as a school bus driver and was also a former counselor in the community. More than 12 school buses took part in a memorial drive through the community to honor Bradley. Family members say Bradley would have picked up his students for school this week. Canada's Transportation Safety Board, along with the RCMP, continue to investigate the plane crash. The leader of a First Nation in Saskatchewan is demanding answers from the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations leadership as a preliminary audit from the federal government questions millions of dollars in spending. CTV's Keenan Sorokin continues to follow this developing story.
Muskeg Lake Cree Nation Chief Kelly Wolf wants answers as a forensic audit is asking the FSIN to explain more than $34 million in expenses.
It's definitely very frustrating, but yet not surprising.
A leaked photo of a forensic audit presentation given to FSIN leadership last week shows questionable, ineligible, and unsupported transactions dating back to April 1st of 2019. $3.7 million is noted as ineligible, more than $30 million as questionable, and more than $155,000 as unsupported.
We want to see accountability, we want to see transparency, and yet it falls on deaf ears. And we ask ourselves, has there ever been a financial scandal like this ever in Canada's history or Indigenous governance history?
More than $23 million of COVID-19 funding is in question, and Wolf hopes there's a good explanation for money that First Nations needed sorely at the time. Another $8 million in administrative fees is under scrutiny, as is fleet vehicle and corporate travel spending. The audit, ordered by Indigenous Services Canada, is being finalized after first allowing the FSIN to supply added documentation in a June meeting. A summary of the results will be posted online by the end of the month, and if it's similar to what's already been revealed, then Wolf expects to see FSIN Chief Bobby Cameron's resignation.
We need to make an example out of these people who have done our people wrong.
The FSIN did not respond to CTV's request for a comment and refused to allow any questions about the audit at a news conference for a separate matter on Monday. Keenan Sorakan, CTV News, Saskatoon.
Parliament resumed on Monday, and the Carney government has committed to releasing a budget this fall. With this in mind, the Assembly of First Nations held a press conference on Tuesday outlining its spending priorities. But as APTN's Fraser Needham reports, much of it was dominated by the AFN's ongoing opposition to Bill C-5, or the One Canadian Economy Act.
Speaking to reporters in Ottawa, AFN National Chief Cindy Woodhouse-Nepenak said the government's announcement of an 11-member Indigenous Advisory Council last week has done little to quell her organization's concerns about Bill C-5.
Canada can create all of the project offices and advisory groups that they want, but chiefs are united. When it comes to the approval of large national infrastructure projects on First Nations lands, there is no getting around First Nations rights holders. Until an appropriate process is established and founded in free, prior, and informed consent from First Nations, the Crown's legal obligations will not be met.
The AFN did also outline what it would like to see in the upcoming budget, such as new spending to address the massive First Nations infrastructure gap and ensuring all communities have access to clean drinking water. But in his opening remarks, AFN Regional Chief for Manitoba, Willie Moore, chose to make note of the fact no First Nations from his province were included on the Advisory Council.
Canada calls Bill C-5 the Major Projects Office its new nation-building tools. But we need to be clear. These major projects need First Nation consent. It is our participation that gives the investors a sense of security that projects will move forward. Canada needs us.
Woodhouse-Nepenak also said the AFN was not consulted on the creation of the council and is still unsure what it will exactly do.
We have not seen the terms of reference. I think, we had one conversation, of course, with the federal government on that role, and it was pretty late, as like they had done with C-5.
AFN Regional Chief for New Brunswick, Joanna Bernard, added if Ottawa has any plans to move forward on national projects without properly consulting First Nations, it will do so at its own peril.
If you look at history, in Atlantic Canada, there were some projects, energy projects, that did not go through because they did not consult and our people took over the land and the work did not get done. So be prepared that may be something that Canada, the First Nations may do. If they're not doing it right, we're going to stand up. We're not going to be folding down again as we did in the past. And
late Tuesday afternoon, the government announced it will release the 2025 federal budget on November 4th. Fraser Needham, APTN National News, Ottawa.
Now to British Columbia, where the provincial government has just given the green light to a massive energy project. APTN's Tina House has this story.
At this press conference, Premier David Eby was joined by the Nisga'a-Lissam's government to make a special announcement.
I'm so thrilled for the Nisga'a people. They have worked hard to get to this stage, and I am very proud to announce that the EA, the Environmental Assessment Certificate, has been issued for the Lissam's project, which means that the project is moving forward, and the only final hurdle for the Nisga'a is a final investment decision for them and their partners.
The Lissam's project name means the Nass River in their language, and this project has been 10 years in the making. It will deliver 12 million tons of liquefied natural gas per year to the Perce Island on the northwest coast through pipelines from northeast BC. The LNG will then be transported to Asian markets on tankers.
In partnership with First Nations, finding ways to drive down carbon pollution while building up our economy. That's how you build an economy the right way, and today's announcement, an excellent example of that. Lissam's shows us what the future looks like. This project will create 800 jobs during construction, more than 200 jobs ongoing at the site, $17 billion in contribution to the Canadian economy over the lifetime of the project.
Eva Clayton is the president of the Nisga'a government. She says Indigenous people now play an essential role in shaping Canada's economy.
Chisasibi LNG is a project our nation is proud to be co-developing with our partners. As BC and Canada work to retool our economy, Indigenous nations all across Canada are playing a central role. We don't need to resist change if we are the ones shaping it.
The Nisga'a, in partnership with the Rockies LNG and Western LNG, say the project also involves many partners on the ground to make this happen. Tina House, APTN National News, Vancouver.
It has been more than 2 years since the death of Aaron Gamble in Saskatoon, and there has still been no arrests made. Now the family is calling for justice for the former teacher. That story when we come back. Welcome back. The federal government cut funding for the National Advisory Committee on Residential Schools, Missing Children, and Unmarked Burials earlier this year. This committee supported communities to search unmarked burial sites. Despite these cuts, the Cree community of Chisasibi is continuing their search at 2 former residential schools in Quebec. This includes the Fort George Roman Catholic Residential School and the St. Philip's School at Fort George. Archaeologist Adrian Burke, who is leading the search, says the excavation is not expensive as the team already has ground-penetrating radars, also known as GPRs, and most of the costs include traveling to and from the community. Burke says the team was able to save some money from funding the feds have previously provided to be able to continue to carry out the search in Chisasibi.
One of the sort of things that we're trying to do across Canada with our working group is we want to train Indigenous communities to do this work, because we think that ultimately the Indigenous communities should be in control of this, including, the GPR or the other, of course, the archival research, for example. So what we did this year is we trained several Cree folks from Chisasibi to do the GPR. If we do archaeological excavation, I don't mean with heavy equipment, but archaeological excavation, that too requires some training. But we are training Indigenous people across Canada in archaeology as well.
Aaron Gamble's family is calling for justice, demanding that those responsible for his death be held accountable. It has been more than 2 years since his death, and there are still no arrests made by the Saskatoon Police Service. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations held a recent press conference urging police to do more. APTN video journalist Rachel May reports.
I'm not going anywhere, and I will fight for him till all the people responsible for his death are outed and charged for his murder.
Amelia Grey-Eye's brother Aaron Gamble was murdered on March 24th, 2023. His body was found in a garbage bin in the 2300 block of 17th Street West in Saskatoon. Police footage shows 3 persons of interest using a dolly to carry a large object to the bin, placing it inside and then leaving. Grey-Eye says she wants answers to ensure her brother's killers are held accountable for what they did.
I do not want his case to go cold when the persons who did this are living freely and amongst us. The updates that are not new, the time and toll this has taken on me is the most frustrating. I am tired of the ones who did this, living their lives freely, walking around thinking they have gotten away with this. No more. This has to end now, as they are not smarter than the police.
Grey-Eyes is asking the Saskatoon Police Service to use their resources to search areas of high interest in the investigation.
I am asking for places to be forensically tested, more resources available, with input from people who have information to share and have tried since his murder. I am angry and frustrated. I have done what was asked of me for 2.5 years, and now is the time where I am speaking and advocating for my brother.
4th Vice Chief of the FSIN, Craig McCallum, spoke at the press conference and said that the FSIN is standing with Gamble's family.
No family should ever have to feel, should never have to come to do things like this, to sit in front of a camera, to beg for updates, to beg for answers, to beg for effort.
McCallum added that the family needs SPS to communicate what steps are being taken to catch the killers and to increase resources to ensure justice for Gamble.
This is a public call to SPS to communicate with the family, to share with them, and to open up those lines of communication so that they don't feel alone, or also that nothing is being done to help find justice for their loved one.
In a statement to APTN, the Saskatoon Police Service said the investigation into Gamble's death remains active and encouraged anyone with information to contact them directly at 306-975-8300 or anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Rachel May, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
Last Friday, the Cody First Nation in Saskatchewan opened its new museum located inside the Chief Gabriel Cody Education Complex. CTV's Frugina DeClute brings us this story.
On Friday, Cody First Nation opened its new museum located inside the Chief Gabriel Cody Education Complex.
You know, it's very everything here is humble knowing that a lot of our artifacts that represent our culture have returned home.
Corey Cadot is the man behind the museum. He says the story began with a phone call.
Lady that used to live around here back in the early 1900s. She's 86 now, but she called me and she had some old artifacts.
In his excitement, he wrote a couple of articles to the local paper that caught the attention of future donors, such as the Western Development Museum.
It just, once one thing happened, all the other things started happening, and as you look around you today, it just all came together just like that.
The museum showcases tools and garments, but his most cherished artifact is a stone hammer.
Just like I have a special connection to it because it is made over 500 years ago, and one of my ancestors made it and used it and lived and survived with it, so it's pretty cool.
Chief Cody hopes that the museum will bring people together.
This kind of gives us an opportunity to build partnerships with not only our nation, but other nations and even the towns and the cities, is that we can share our history and knowledge with one another so that we can understand one another.
Cadot already has plans for some interactive expansion.
Where that you're just going to be able to push a button and one of our language speakers and our elders are going to be telling the stories in our language about what you're looking at and what you're seeing.
This is yet another step Cody First Nation is taking to reclaim their culture and their language. The rest, as they say, is history. Frugina de Clute, CTV News, Cody First Nation.
We now want to tell you about this week's second web poll question. Over on our website, we ask, do you think communities should have the power to cut off their territory to non-Indigenous and sports hunters? Your answers are yes, no, or unsure. Go to aptnnews.ca to have your say. Our third web question will be posted later this week. And once again, we're always looking for your feedback or story ideas. Here's how you can continue the conversation with us. If you have a story you want to share, send us an email to news@aptn.ca. And to read and watch our stories, go to aptnnews.ca. You can also find us online on your favorite social media sites, including TikTok, LinkedIn, and X. And you can watch this newscast and our previous newscasts and stories on YouTube. Follow APTN News to join the conversation and see our latest stories. An event recently held in Alberta put a spotlight on homelessness in Edmonton. That story when we come back. Stay with us. Must chill for staying with us. St. John's 15, Charlottetown 23 and sunny. Nujuak 10, the Grand River 12 and smoky. Saskatchewan 20 and sunny, Quebec City 21. Ottawa 20, Peterborough 21 and partly cloudy. Wawa 20, Sudbury 21 and sunny there. Puckatawagan 15, The Paw 14. Brandon 16, 17 in Winnipeg and sunny. Rain in Swift Current at 8, smoky in Saskatoon at 11. Uranium City at 15 and sunny, Meadow Lake smoky as well at 8. Sunny and high level at 20, Peace River 18 and partly cloudy. 23 in Calgary, Lethbridge 26. Tofino 15, smoky in Victoria 12. Dees Lake 10, Smithers 15 and sunny. Watson Lake 15, Dawson 14 and rain. Showers in Wrigley at 19, Fort Simpson 21. Tuktoyaktuk 5 in rain, Palatuck 10. Baker Lake 7, Cambridge Bay 6 and partly cloudy. And Iqaluit 5 in rain, Arctic Bay -6. The first Walk a Mile in a Ribbon Skirt Day was held 6 years ago in Edmonton. It's a day that raises more awareness about the prejudice and discrimination Indigenous women and girls and Two-Spirit people face on a daily basis. And on Tuesday, the day has now been officially recognized as Walk a Mile in a Ribbon Skirt Day in Alberta. Tuesday's event was themed More Than a Skirt, with speakers talking about the huge problem in the city with homelessness and people dying on the streets in the wintertime. Emotions were high as members from Edmonton's City Council heard personal stories about homelessness and lost family members.
And I proposed a challenge to the City Council that they could maybe facilitate a forum where we could get together with the administrators, people who actually can make change and allocate funds to solutions, and form a committee based around houselessness with trauma-informed people. We can invite the chief and councils from Treaty 6, 7, and 8 because over 50% of the houseless community are Indigenous in Edmonton.
A lot of women are dying on the streets, a lot of men are dying on the streets, and that's why it was important for me to bring houselessness here. I wanted the city councilors to be here, and they were all here. It was a big event, and a lot of people, it was a heated event, and I knew it was going to be a heated event because the people are dying. These are people's lives, these are families who are dying, and Indigenous people, we are suffering.
And that's your daytime newscast for this Wednesday. We're back again for your evening newscasts in a few hours. Please join us then. From all of us at APTN National News, hai hai masicho kwana miigwech. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you again next day.